I had a lot riding on this game. Okay, I was going up against Jamison and Jahmyr Gibbs. I started Sam Laporta myself. Thank God I did not have Jaden Reed, and thank God my opponent did not have Josh Jacobs. We will talk about it all here. First, starting with the Detroit Lions. I don't know if there's much we need to update. Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown changes, but with Jared Goff, he was a streaming quarterback before this. He's a streaming quarterback after this game. Obviously, Jared Goff's been phenomenal from a real life perspective. But again, the main issue you have with Goff is you just have no rushing upside. You get 7 rushing yards this week, and this was pretty much the most that you've seen all year from Goff, pretty much throughout his entire career. This is the most you've seen. I'm going through and looking at where he was in our rest of season rankings. He was at quarterback 10, right among all the other streamers, such as like Mahomes, Tua, Purdy, where I don't necessarily think you actually stream them, but you probably roster 2 quarterbacks there and you just play the matchups from week to week perspective. So, I mean, Goff, fine spot to be in if you started him and you get the 3 passing touchdowns, but obviously high scoring game environment, both quarterbacks are going to do well, or you would think. Going over to what we have with the running backs here. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, both get a ton of work. What's a little surprising is to see the 5 receptions for Montgomery. Montgomery continues to get more involvement as a receiver than we are projecting coming into the season. But if you look at both running backs, Montgomery sees 19 opportunities in comparison to Jahmyr Gibbs with 21 opportunities. So both running backs obviously are very exciting. There's not much to discuss. We are typically used to seeing Gibbs be the more efficient running back from a per touch perspective. That wasn't the case today, however, but in my rankings here, rest of season, I don't necessarily think that we need to change much. I have David Montgomery as that low end RB1, high end RB2, right in the same range as like James Cook, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams. We have Gibbs there as a mid RB1. It's the best offensive line in the NFL. It's the best offense in the league. I don't think we really change anything. I do want to give my flowers to Jameson Williams, where Jameson, this is his 3rd straight week where you haven't had a nuclear performance by any means. Like, obviously, we have seen some of these games from Jameson where he actually goes through and he gives you 20, 25 fantasy points. You haven't had that over the past 3 weeks, but what you have seen is you've actually seen the consistent target volume, where you've had 7 targets last week, 7 targets the week prior, 8 targets this week. Jameson Williams actually leads this team in targets. And this is somebody that I do think we can move up our rest of season rankings, because I had already been ranking him ahead of these guys like Addison, Mooney, and our weekly rankings. Like, I think I moved Jameson up, honestly, probably ahead of the Niners guys. I think I probably moved Jameson up to about wide receiver 29 in our rest of season ranks. I think I'd have him in the same range as like Jawan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, right ahead of Brian Thomas, Darnell Mooney. It does appear that the floor with Jameson is higher than it was at the beginning of the season, where at the beginning of the season and pretty much through his entire career, what you had seen with Jameson Williams is a receiver that is touchdown or bust. But honestly, the floor has been risen. Now, going through and looking at what we have with the other receiver that we need to talk about. The wide receiver 1 that you drafted in round 1 that you've been starting every single week, and you're super excited to start tonight, Mr. Tim Patrick. Yes, Tim Patrick, I know we were all expecting him to print 20 fantasy points every single week. That's why you started him tonight, and he does just that for you. So we had Tim Patrick ranked as the wide receiver 3 coming into tonight in our rest of season rankings. And we probably need to keep it. Oh, wait. Never mind. I guess it wasn't Tim Patrick. Maybe it was Amon-Ra St. What did St. Brown do in this game? Oh, St. Brown gives you 9.5 fantasy points. Oh, thanks. Thanks for giving Tim Patrick the red zone looks. Can I go through and say, oh, St. Brown's inconsistent. Let's move him behind A.J. Brown. Let's move him behind Justin. No, A.J. Brown and Justin Jefferson have been inconsistent as well. St. Brown's still the wide receiver 1 in the best offense in the league. I know it's weird looking at it like with the wide receiver ranks. I think a more appropriate way to view this is like the overall rankings, where you'll see, oh, okay, yeah, you only have one elite receiver, and that's Jamar Chase. Like all these wide receiver ones outside of Chase have question marks surrounding them, which is why the top 8 of our rankings are all running back. And hell, at this point, I know it may seem crazy, but I would rather have Chase Brown and Josh Jacobs over Amon-Ra St. Brown and A.J. Brown. I think we move more running backs up there inside the top 12. Like if we were to redraft today, I think you have only 3 non-running backs in round 1 where running back has dominated this year. This is the best year of running backs in fantasy football that I can remember, to be honest. It's not like you just have 2 elite guys crushing as we're used to. No, I mean, you have the generational performance in Saquon Barkley with what you're getting this season. And then you have a bunch of other running back ones. So with St. Brown, he's a mid wide receiver 1. Disappointing game. It's sad to see the volume going to Tim Patrick. The thing is, there just aren't a bunch of other mid wide receiver 1s that you can say, oh, okay, yeah, I know exactly what to... They're going to dominate. No, it's all about the same. They're all inconsistent at this point. Going over to tight ends, looking at Mr. Sam Laporta. I'll move you up, buddy. We are putting you in the doghouse. I think at this point, honestly, I'll put you ahead of Kate Otten. You do you. We'll have Sam Laporta tight end 8. Last week, he comes through for us in a big time way with the 2 receiving touchdowns. This week, we get 10.5 fantasy points. And ooh, dear God, it feels good. I mean, this is something to celebrate if you drafted Sam Laporta in round 4 like I did. I know it's back-to-back okay weeks for Laporta, but realistically, the dude had 6 receiving yards last week, right? So, I don't know. I'm happy to see the 7 targets, but it's off of 40 pass attempts for Jared Goff. Very rarely do you see this many plays run in this Detroit Lions offense. Usually they're able to just run the ball consistently and kind of play keep away through the game, but they went up against a very good Packers team. And let's talk about these Packers options in fantasy. And actually, you are seeing significantly fewer plays run in Green Bay in comparison to Detroit. Like, let's go through and let's look at this in comparison. We have a total of about 75 plays run for the Detroit Lions in comparison to 44 for the Green Bay Packers. So it is a night and day difference here in what you would expect from a fantasy perspective. Jordan Love had already been moving down our ranks. And another dud performance from Jordan Love. This is just, another week of disappointment. I think Love, at this point, you can't call him anything more than just a week-to-week streaming quarterback. Like, going into the future, I'd rather have Goff over Love. I'd rather have Bo Nix. I'd rather have Baker. Again, of course, the quarterback position's so damn weird in that you have the top 5 guys who are so far ahead of anybody else that's not even remotely close. And then guys like 6 through 9 are kind of whatever. So Love, just another down performance. And what we got so wrong in this game is obviously you knew you had to start Jacobs regardless. But I thought this was going to be a spot where you actually had a considerable amount of passing attempts and passing volume for Jordan Love based off what we have seen all season, where the Detroit Lions are a great rush defense. However, you can throw the ball against them. Now, if you are looking at what ends up happening, the Packers go, nope, we're good. We'll have 24 carries in comparison to 20 pass attempts. The Packers decided to run the ball against a solid rush defense. Clearly it worked. I mean, they were able to go through and they were able to put points up on the board. It's just you can't stop the Detroit Lions. I'm looking at Josh Jacobs. Y'all know I freaking love this dude. Y'all know we drafted him absolutely everywhere. I had the take that he was going to outscore Derrick Henry this year, which is looking better now, but definitely was not a good take. But yeah, Jacobs, 3-down running back, the workhorse in a great offense. We've said it since before the season started. Top 10 back for us. The thing about moving Jacobs any higher than this is like, okay, Chase Brown's going to also be in one of the league's best offenses, seeing every single touch. But Chase Brown has a greater receiving workload. Now, trust me, I drafted a lot more Josh Jacobs this year than Chase Brown. I wish it was an easy spot to put Jacobs ahead of Chase Brown. I wish it was an easy spot to put Jacobs ahead of Gibbs. But again, it's like a weird thing to look at this in terms of like just the running back rankings, because the thing about the running back position is there are so many strong running backs. Like honestly, at this point, I think I'd rather have the top 9 running backs, but I think I'd rather have 9 running backs before you get to the second receiver. I think Jacobs, a better way to view him is, instead of him being running back 9, it's always a top 10 asset in fantasy. And if it wasn't for there being so many other great running backs, you could very easily make an argument to have them even higher. But the phenomenal game from Jacobs. Again, I don't necessarily know if much changes here. Really, the only thing that changes is I can finally just move Jayden Reed off the face of the planet. Every single week we've been saying, he doesn't get targets. Y'all have heard me say this fact 1,000 times now, that Jayden Reed has had one game this season with more than 6 targets. And that was 8 targets. Now, I thought Jayden Reed was actually interesting this week against Detroit. I thought, you're going to have a decent amount of pass attempts for Jordan Love. You have no Romeo Doubs. So the target tree will be a little bit more concentrated than we're used to. And the target tree was a lot more concentrated than we were used to. I mean, you actually only have 5 players drawing a target here in Green Bay this week. And usually you're up at like 8, 9 guys as seeing targets in this offense. So even though it was super concentrated, RIP Jayden Reed, how low does this guy move? Like I'd rather have Darnell Mooney over Jayden Reed. Hell, I'd probably rather have Ridley. I think Reed's down in the range of like Addison, Shakir, Waddle, where you're starting him and setting up a prayer that you get a touchdown. I do have Shakir higher than this in our rankings this week, but once you get Keon and Kincaid good to go for the long term, I think the target share comes down for Shakir. I know that's a side note, probably don't need to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, this entire tier of receivers is just, you start them, you're not going to get a lot of volume. If you get a touchdown, cool. If you don't, you're screwed. I think that's probably where Reed belongs at this point. Now, I do want to give credit to Jayden Reed. Like, I see people in the chat screaming that Reed is droppable at this point. Jayden Reed's not droppable. I know we all want to clown on the dude for just doing absolutely nothing. And I'll give you all a little sneak peek of what happened in the Flock League. Sadly, I did have to go up against Gibbs and Jameson, as I already discussed. I'm still the favorite to win. But Badaki was supposed to be winning here. And he gets the goose egg from Jayden Reed. But you look at Jayden Reed, he was 11th in total fantasy points coming into this game. So again, it's not the most surprising thing in the world to see this Jayden Reed fall off over the past month or so, because the target volume was never there, but he's just been so damn efficient. So we are already very low on Jayden Reed for the dude to be 11th in total fantasy points at wide receiver, and for us to have him at wide receiver 36. But to say that he is droppable, I think is a little bit unfair. I think the correct way to view him is he is a touchdown or bust option that's not going to see a lot of volume, similar to what you have with names like Jordan Addison. Then going over to what we have with Tucker Kraft. Kraft sees about a 25% team target share. He gets the touchdown as well. So Tucker Kraft still definitely a viable tight end that you can be looking at. Honestly, this point, I don't know. All these tight ends are about the same. Like Ingram, Ertz, you're going to get more targets. Maybe the main thing that we need to do is actually move Kincaid down here. But especially when you get Romeo Doubs back in this offense. I think you can see a few more targets going away from Tucker Kraft. But Tucker Kraft, kind of a touchdown or bust, tight end as well. But you can say that about a lot of these different names. But super fun game. I really wish that we had a Laporta touchdown. If we had a Laporta touchdown, I'd be in a much better mood right now. But I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And again, really do appreciate you. I'm going to submit these updated ranks on the site. And yeah, send up a prayer that I am able to win this week in the Flock League. I know everybody watching, y'all better be on Team Mason. Okay. Now, a lot of y'all are saying y'all are anti-Team Mason, but this is what we need this week here, ladies and gentlemen. We are back to the team of destiny. We are going up against Tom. And dear God, it's going to be a tough one, but if we can overcome and if we can win, we will clinch the bye, which is very, very important for us. But much love, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you and really hope I get to see you out with the live stream either tomorrow or Saturday.